Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Bethany, and I will be doing a lot of things with Cricut, combined with stamping, graphic design, lots of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. A little bit about myself. I'm married. I have one stepdaughter and two girls of my own, and one on the way, a little boy. He should be here in a few months. And I like to do lots of different artwork, crafts. Mixed media is my game. And I want to pass a lot of the knowledge that I've learned over the years on to you. Some things are going to be more basic, some things are going to be more advanced. If you ever have any questions, though, feel free to ask. I won't be offended. And if I can help you, I will. If I can point you in the direction of somebody else, I will. I want to let you all know I'm not affiliated with anybody. I'm not getting paid by anybody. I'm just doing this because I love to craft and create. So, and if I can give you any freebies, like if I create any SVGs and I can send them your way, absolutely, I would be happy to share. So, with that, here is the first video of I went out on a limb and I created something from scratch, live. So I didn't exactly have a plan, but I made it happen. So enjoy the video. Hi, my name is Bethany, and today I will be teaching you a mixed media art, very simplified mixed media art using Cricut, cardstock, and simple stamping techniques. So this is the card that I've created in Cricut. I just created this simple stamp, or it was going to be a stamp, but I couldn't find the stamp that I liked, so I just created my own drawing of the Christmas tree that I liked. And if you hide that layer, yep, you can see that there's actually a back layer that's all connected to each other. But what I intend to do, and we're going to try now, is to make the tree a little bit more 3D with raised sticky tape. Alright, so what we're going to do first is we are going to cut everything out. This is a 5x7 holiday card that I've created, and everything should load appropriately. And I do want to bring one of these stars into the other mat because I don't want it to be same color twice. So I'm going to move the object to, as long as it comes up, yep, to the happy mat, confirm, and I'm going to place it here. Anywhere there's a gap that's large enough to fit the star would be preferred. And then the other thing too is the way I've set it up. I was originally going to use the same color of green as the original card, so instead of using that, I'm going to move this to its own mat and move object to a new mat. There we go. And we're just going to create a different color for it. Confirm, and it gets its own mat. Let's make sure it's all the way up in the corner. Alright, and then we are going to cut this baby out. I am using a Cricut Explorer Air to create this holiday card, but you can use the Maker, you could use the regular Explorer, or excuse me, the Explorer 2, you could use basically any of the Cricut machines. For the first cut, we are going to use 80-pound cardstock. Let me open it up. Make some space. And yep, that should fit just fine. This one might not be the 80-pound cardstock. It's actually a little bit thinner of a cardstock, so I'm going to change it to light cardstock on my dial here. You have the maker, you just change it in your settings. And make sure no bubbles. Load. And I'm gonna let it cut. Please excuse the extra messy cutting mats. I don't clean my mats as often as I should, but they would do well for me. I do like to, especially for cardstock, use the light grip card or the light grip maps because I find there are less tears when I take things off the mats than the green mats, but I do, or I have used green mats that are not as new. When they're new, they don't work so great, I find. But if they've been used for a while, then they work wonderfully. Alright, and we're about 25% through the cut. And 100%. Awesome. So unloading now. I'm going to lift this up. Take it all off. Now this one actually is a specialty paper. I don't remember where I picked it up from. I'm going to assume someplace like Michael's, but it's kind of like a cardboard almost. So it's going to be a heavier cardstock. I don't know if you can see that, but it's not thicker than my cardstock, but it's harder to grip. So I'm going to swap to my green cutting mat, hopefully. And you know what? Because it's slightly slippery, I'm going to, it's a little trick I learned from doing leather work, is to just grab a piece of blue painter's tape. You just tape down right at the edge. So you're not going to go too far in. If you cut the blue painter's tape, it's totally fine. But it just helps give you that extra boost so you don't worry about it slipping while it's doing its cut. It's only 5 sides for the star, but it still makes me a little nervous sometimes, especially with specialty paper. And then make sure it's down as flat as it can be. And let me change my dial to the thicker. We're going to do the cardstock plus setting on this. If you were doing with your maker, I would suggest maybe changing it to, I believe there is the cardstock plus, but I'd have to double check that, and if I can't find it, I will put it in, or if I can find it, I'll put it in the notes. So pressing go for my star. And then while that's going, I'm going to take this one off. So for me, working with the Cricut, it should never be about speed, but of course, I like to be as quick as possible. But I don't always use the right tools to take things off, but nails work just fine. Alright, and the next one, the Happy Holidays, or the inside of the card. Well, the base and inside of the card. So that I picked a lighter green simply because I'm going to have the Cricut right in the card itself for me. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I use a completely separate sheet to do that. But for this specific one, we're going to change it back to regular cardstock because this is pretty much regular cardstock. So I've placed the lighter green on my mat, my light grip mat. Now, when I created the template for my cards, all of my cards need the scoring tool because I don't have a scoring utility tool. So I use the Cricut scorer, and I believe that's what it typically has me put in right away. So I put that into and loaded that with the green drawing stylus and press go. In the meantime, I'm going to take this one off, pop my little star out, make sure we don't lose that, and then it's going to ask me for the black. I use the Cricut black 4.0 or 0.4 tip. Sometimes if I have a font that I think will be better looking with a bold font or with a bold tip, I'll use the bold tip. But for this one, I thought simple was better. So it's loaded and it is ready to draw. So while that's going on, I'm just gonna unload with my painter's tape trick down here. Going to unload it, and the drawing does take some time, so usually I like to putz with other things. This green mat itself is kind of less tacky than the other ones, so I could actually go ahead and load my next cut while I'm waiting for this lovely machine to cut, or to draw and then finish cutting this next one. So, and the reason why I chose a Christmas in July card to cut is because for whatever reason my daughters literally just this last week have opened several Christmas gifts from various people, and so we have had more Christmas wrapping paper on our floors since December basically. But I just thought it was entertaining, and it kind of got me in the Christmas mood, and so I said, alright, well, I better start designing my holiday cards now. And I had some stamps that I had used but not enough, and so I decided to create this card specifically around a stamp, and I thought I had a stamp that matched this little Christmas tree I created, but I didn't. So that's where I decided I'm going to just design it myself and make it work. I'm going to show you these little stamps that I have found. One is actually, I got it at Goodwill, but it's a Stamp It Up old freebie, I think, from 2000. And it's just little snowflakes. And then this one actually isn't snowflakes, but it gives you that snowflake look. I think I got it at Joann's. But it's kind of splotches. But we're aiming for the snowflake look. I haven't tested this out, so we will test this out in person. Alright, next one's ready to load. And let's cap this so we don't dry it out. Uh-oh. There we go. And this one should be just the same amount of thickness as the last one, so I'll load that one in. And when it's ready for me, we're gonna go. Alright, so in the meantime, I'm going to take this one and fold it over. You'll see the scoring line, and I kind of just loosely line it up to where I think it's going to need it. And then I take this and we're going to unload that and give us a little bit more space. So once I have it loosely lined up, then I use this nifty little scraper, or actually I think it's called the big scraper, but I use it to just finish my fold. Alright, and then the next thing, I'm actually going to put this on after, but I just want to line it up, make sure I like the look. It's a little bit different using blue with green. It's a little less traditional, but I kind of like the idea. So I'm just going to hook this right here so I remember what I'm doing. And it happens frequently. There's a lot of distractions. You know, I'm actually going to do the background with the stamping before I put the happy down. So I have a scrap piece of foam board that I cut up, a little poster that my girls were playing with, and let's see, I'm gonna just make it so that it doesn't move terribly much on me. Make sure we don't lose our stars for later. And going to, let's see, haven't decided exactly which of the colors I'm going to use. I always have baby wipes. I buy them, well, when you have little ones, you tend to have a lot more baby wipes. So the Recollection brand I do like, just for the fact that they do things a little bit differently. I got that from Michael's. And that one is specifically an ombre with the silver. So it's kind of fun for something like this where there's no real rhyme or reason to what you're doing. You're just putting it there. I'm going to use a little bit of black as well. And we're going to see how this purple turns out. It's a very light lavender purple. But we're just going to go with it. Sometimes using those little off colors helps create shading effects. So I like to do stuff like that where, and if it doesn't work out, guess what? I can flip the card over and try again. Obviously, this is kind of just a go for it, for all. And just a gentle tap. Excuse me. Been a very long day. And we're just gonna kind of coat things. Sometimes I just like to let it lose its ink because it gives you that shadowed effect. And trying to be a little heavier on the top than the bottom. Alright, I like that. Like what I've done on that. It's nothing too dark. And actually, if I adjust my light, you can kind of see it a little bit more. And using the baby wipe, clean it a little bit. And it's just a light speckling, nothing too crazy. You can actually see the dots on my stamp pad itself. If you see that. Apparently I use this stamp pad specifically for this stamp regularly. or recently I should say. But it's an ombre effect, so it's literally 3 stamps, or three inks together, and you kind of just gently line it up. And I'm going to go right across the middle, right where the bulk of what we're putting on is going to be. Alright, so there's like a little ombre effect. It's definitely different. And I think I'm going to use these tiny snowflakes themselves. I'm going to do a couple in black and see how I like it. If I don't, starting over. But clean this one off before I forget, because sometimes I like to forget, and then I go, oh, I can't use that. That's running into a different ink that I'm not trying to use right now. All right. And just a nice little dab. I'm going to use the corners up here. Don't want too many of these because then it just becomes a little too obvious. Should rotate a little bit better though. I'll just add a little more there on the bottom. And go a little bit off the page here. And we'll do the same here, same here. And add a couple of little fading ones as the ink is fading off a little bit. And I think I'm liking it. I'll add a few more fading ones on the edges. I don't really want it on the top and the bottom, so it's good enough for me. Alright, well, I like the effect I've created. The nice thing about stamping associated with Cricut is Cricut, you can get your straight lines. Stamping, you can kind of play. I really like that idea of playing around and having that structure from the Cricut machine with my basic designs that I create. Sometimes I create elaborate ones too. But I feel like the combination of the two really creates a cool effect sometimes. Sometimes, well, it's an epic fail, and that's okay. Because if you didn't try, you wouldn't know how it would look. Alright, so my space is getting a little crazy and chaotic, but we're going to work with it anyways. Okay, so to put on the happy, I like to use, it is a two-way glue squeeze and roll pen. You can either dab or squeeze and go. So we're going to go along the lines, the longer lines, and you can't see that. Now you can. Alright. It's nice because you can do a little bit more precision. I pick this up at Michael's every time I have a 50 or 60% off coupon at Michael's. I literally buy one of these. Just for the fact that I use it a lot. And see, for like the little edges, dots are great. This you can just roll. It's kind of like drawing your glue on. And the nice thing is it's semi-tacky, so if you need to reposition, you got time. But it's also not super messy on your hands, should you ever get something left on your hands. So let's position it right about there. All right. And then, oops, I did it too hard. Forgot that Y. All right. Sometimes I don't use the scraper, sometimes I just hand tack. I'm using the scraper for this specific one because of the fact that I wanted to make sure it stayed in line. So the gray is subtle. That'll help all the rest pop. Let me put it on. I'm going to add the glue dots to the star here. The reason why I did the star in gray as well, I could have just gone and done it in the special foil paper. But the reason why I did it for this one was because I wanted to give it that shadow effect. So keep it in uniformity. And it doesn't have to be perfectly placed, just placed enough that you like it. There's no real science to this. It's just kind of go with the flow and be creative on your own. So, one other technique I want to use, I want to create a little 3D'ing on this tree here. So, before I tape it down. So I'm going to actually move this. And we're going to put that to the side. And let's see. We'll just kind of place that there. And I'll move that as needed. So this is, I'm just going to experiment. But I have these brush tip pens. And I'm just going to try a couple of test colors along the edges and see how it looks. And if it doesn't look good, that's okay too. But I'm giving it like a little extra, so it's not just as straightforward. Originally I was going to do a green sparkle, and I said, that's just too obvious. Green glitter tree is cute, don't get me wrong, but it just felt too obvious for what I was looking for. So as it's drying, you can kind of see how it's creating this kind of 3D-ish effect. It's not super out there, but it's there. And I might actually add some in the middle. Being daring and bold here. And I'm going to actually try a different color green. See if it makes it. This one I'm going to just kind of sploosh here. Like it's giving it a little bit more texture. So a lot of this technique comes from doing sketch art. So when you do sketch art or you do charcoal art, a lot of times with that kind of stuff, it's easy to erase, but you learn how to find different shades and shapes by doing like all of these textures. So this, we're kind of 3D'ing it up by adding some funky texture. This is actually foam tape. You can see it here. It's foam tape that is from the Dollar Tree. It works wonderfully in terms of it does the job, but you can also cut very specific shapes, sizes. The pack that I got, it comes with 3 different sizes, and it works well, so I don't complain. Alright, so we're going to add, and in fact, I'm going to make that smaller. I'm not a fan of how big or how thick the roll was. And if I did the dots are harder, in my opinion, the dots are harder to cut versus a strip, which is a little bit easier to cut. And take that tape off. And we are going to find the long edge. And there we go. We have a shadow effect created. You can see that. There's a little shadowing. So it makes it extra 3D. Not just popped off the board, but actually 3D. Alright, and then we will just add more dots to the back of this. Use that tiny one. The second half of the tiny one. Right there. Should fit fine. And I really only need like 3 or 4 points here, so that's really all I'm going to cut. No point in overdoing it, because then it's just too obvious. But I really like the 3D effect. I had a card class probably 4 years ago, and the instructor, she used foam dots on everything, and I mean everything. Every sample card she made, every single one had a foam dot on it, and I've never really used foam dots before. I had bought some because it was on special at some point, but other than that, I really had never used it, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, foam dots. They're great for adding that little extra, especially if you're not necessarily mailing cards, you're handing them out, stuff like that. Gives it that little extra boost. And there we go. Now we have a 3D effect on the card itself. Well, now you can see the foam dots, but you can see the 3D effect if you're not looking for the foam dots. Alright, and then the only thing left to do is to find myself a tape runner, which apparently has disappeared. I bet one of my daughters has run off with the tape runner. Haha. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, we can just use the glue pen. But typically I like to use the tape runner for the reason that it sticks better when you have a larger piece of paper, in my opinion. But the two work together really well. I'm going to just do the corners before I do the edges. And actually, I do have some double-sided tape that I will use instead of my tape runner. I picked this up also from the dollar store. Or Dollar Tree, apologies. I grew up calling it the dollar store even though it was technically the Dollar Tree. Go figure. And I think the stickiness starts right, excuse me, there. Alright. And this is not necessarily a sanctioned thing to do, but tape, double-sided tape works great. Especially when you're making cards in a mass format, or you have cards to quickly get out. Double-sided tape works wonderful, especially when you want to give it that little extra touch, but you don't have the time to sit there and glue dot or tape run every little edge. So for me, I don't really have a science to putting these on, other than I like to just get them as close to the same amount on one side and then kind of eye the rest. Sometimes I don't like the placement like right now, but alas, it's grabbed onto enough sides that we're just going to go with it. Alright, and now you just make sure it's on nice and good so that when the person who opens this card opens it and it's not falling out. So there we are. There's the Happy Holidays card using the Cricut and stamping and brush pen techniques. Hope you liked my little tutorial, and I will include any links I possibly can. And happy crafting! Hello all! So this is a follow-up post. My husband saw the card that I made and he liked it, but he said it needs a little bit more pop to it. It needs something that's going to make it stand out from the rest. So I got to thinking and I was like, I have the perfect thing. So this is actually a Stampin' Up! Tool. It's not necessarily, I don't even know if they sell it anymore. I honestly will have to check it out and let you all know. And if they do, I will let you know. But it's called a Wink of Stella. And it's basically a glitter pen or glitter glue pen brush style that dries clear. So I thought that this card, and I haven't used this in a while, so we'll see if oh, there it is. Okay. So, basically, yeah, lots of glitter. It dries clear. Don't think I wanted that much, but at least we can get the essence of it. So I can, add some sparkle here to the happy. I definitely put more glitter on this than I intended. My husband is so cute. He said, well, why don't you have specialty paper or something like that? And I go, well, look at that. That's a gold star. It's a specialty paper. He said, that's not enough. It doesn't shine enough like it's supposed to. You got to make it really stand out. So this is my response to making the card really stand out. Would be to add something like this. You can use different techniques of if you only have glitter and you got some clear glue, just add some clear glue in your design and just sparkle it up like that. So basically I'm just rewriting my letters. And then I think I will glam up the tree as well, because I think that would look really cute. Just do the edges. Doesn't need to be the whole tree, just enough to make it glamour and glitz. And when it dries, it'll look a lot different. It'll not be so glossy. And I'm definitely going to have a little bit of wrinkling in my cardstock from letting that erupt a little too much. That's okay. This is a learning project. Doesn't have to be perfect. So the nice thing about the Wink of Stella, if they still do sell it, is once you have, usually I would have a separate piece of paper and I would dab it out right here, but for these purposes I was just trying to be hasteful. But you can get that nice little sparkle without going over the top here. So I'm going to just do little dabs to finish it off. And like I said, it'll all dry clear, but leave that little bit of sparkle. The other thing I thought to add, which is something my aunt also makes cards. She has her own YouTube channel and she's wonderful at what she does. But my mom suggested, well, if she were doing her cards, she would add 3D things. So we are going to add some 3D gemstones too, to really make the card pop and shine. So we'll add right into, and I don't have a nifty little tool to add these without sticking my fingers all the way into it. Maybe one day I will get one of those nice little gripper tools for stuff like that. But something that gives it a little extra pop and a little extra bling without feeling too obvious as well. Because I'm more of a subtle pop and bling person myself. I like simple. But I am definitely not afraid of adding a little bling. And I think I got these little tiny rhinestones, I want to say from like Michael's. Most of my cardstock and embellishments are from Michael's. But of course, this is by no means saying you have to go rush out to Michael's right now. A lot of different companies have a lot of different versions of these little gemstones. And I'm keeping it kind of asymmetrical, 3 to each corner, so they don't feel overloaded into the space of the card. I'm actually going to add a 4th one here though on this one, just because there's more sparkle on this side and we got to balance it out a little better. And let's add a couple to the, nah, you know what, let's not add to the tree. I think the tree looks nice without. It's going to add to the tree, but nah, it's also going to make it harder to fit into the card. So this is my response to my husband's. Add a little bit more pop to it. Hi everybody, so this is what it looks like at the very end. So it became more of a snow scene than anything. Overdid it a little bit on the glossiness of the gel because I did it live again, made my mistake there. If I were to do it again, I would do exactly what I said, which is blot it on a piece of paper and then add it after. But in any case, this is the result. And there we are. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please, please, please like, share, subscribe, hit the button, the bell button. Make sure you get a notification whenever I do go live or do have another video to share. And I appreciate your support. Have a wonderful day.